A single torch flickers inside a stone hallway. A single torch flickers inside a stone hallway. We glide past shattered banners. Each thread once dyed with the blood of conquest. At the far end, an iron gate groans open. Something enormous exhales, metal scraping bone. A voice, ancient and broken, growls two words through a crown that is no longer royal. Jarvan must die. Again. In the year 875 of the Noxian calendar, the world still knew the taste of honest iron. And Sion, son of no one and father to legends, marched at the head of the Trifarian Legion. He was not a general who spoke in maps or letters. He spoke in footprints that cracked stone. Every dawn, he tied ancestral oaths to his wrists, vows never to retreat, never to kneel, never to die quietly. The Argent Mountains trembled when his axe, Chopper, rested on his shoulder. Villages didn't surrender. They simply ceased to exist between one heartbeat and the next. Yet for all the rivers of blood he spilled, Sion's eyes remained human. Two small, defiant coals refusing to be swallowed by the dark. Word arrived like a whip crack. Demacia had pushed the warbands back to the walled settlement of Vardis. The local commander, pale from previous routes, planned to hide behind stone and let the enemy withdraw. Sion arrived at dusk, flung the man from the parapets, and took command before the body struck earth. At sunrise, the gates yawned wide, and Sion stepped out, alone at first. Behind him, only the bravest of his veterans followed. The rest cowered, their hearts already beaten. Across the field, King Jarvan I waited beneath a lion banner, his armor polished like a second sun. The two lines collided. Spears snapped like kindling. Crossbow bolts vanished into Sion's torso, as if swallowed by a mountain. He didn't dodge. He walked through the killing field, eyes locked on the king. A dozen swords found his ribs. A score of quarrels sprouted from his back. None of it mattered. When he reached Jarvan, Sion dropped his axe. With the last strength of the living, he ripped the crown from the King Ayah's head and closed his other hand around the royal throat. Steel rang against his skull as guards hacked at him like butchers at a frozen carcass. Only when the king's pulse stopped did Sion finally allow his own heart to follow. The field fell silent. Two rulers lay in the mud, one crowned no longer. Sion's fingers never uncurled from the circlet of gold. Noxus wept, not for the thousands dead, but for the single life that had embodied their wrath. They built a statue taller than the immortal bastion itself, dragged the corpse inside, and sealed the doors with hymns and iron. Decades rolled past like funeral drums. Empires fattened, shrank, and forgot. Inside the hollow colossus, the crown of Jarvan I rested against a skeletal jaw, waiting. 51 years after the silence of death, torches again invaded the tomb. The Black Rose, an invisible hand inside Noxian politics, needed a symbol stronger than any living general. LeBlanc, her face hidden behind 7 veils of illusion, nodded once. Vladimir, a hemomancer older than the written word, slit his own palm. The blood refused to touch the floor, hovering like a crimson constellation. They spoke no prayers. They spoke commands. Bone knitted to bone. Rust sloughed off iron. The crown, still clenched in dead fingers, was welded onto a jaw that had long since lost its flesh. Sion's eyes opened. Now furnace red. Now empty. He didn't gasp. He roared. The first breath of the undead shattered the marble floor. Chains of magic wrapped his limbs, but they creaked like overheated steel. Borum Darkwill, Grand General of a fading empire, smiled at the abomination and called it victory. The second life of Sion was not life at all. He stormed battlefields like a living avalanche, but the blood he spilled often included Noxian ankles. Soldiers who once sang his ballads now deserted at the rumor of his approach. Entire platoons vanished beneath boots that could not tell ally from enemy. Darkwill's pride curdled into fear. One moonless night, 1,000 men died dragging the Juggernaut back to his stone prison. They hammered new chains forged from the melted armor of the fallen. Sion laughed while they did it. An earthquake sound that cracked the mortar of the bastion itself. The tomb closed a second time. Inside, rage kept the body from rotting further. The crown of Jarvan I fused with his jawbone. Gold and enamel became the grin of death itself. Years later, the coup came not from the dead, but from the living. Jericho Swain, visionary and cripple, overthrew Darkwill in a single bloody night. He found the sealed statue amusing. He ordered the gate reopened, not for nostalgia, but for leverage. This time, Sion awoke to the scent of Ionian pine and Ionian blood. Swain S warlocks had etched runes into the giant S ribcage, runes that ached when a friend was slain, that soothed when foes fell in bulk. The Juggernaut was pointed southeast toward Ionia's green shores. At the village of Navori, Sion met Irelia dancing her blades. He met Karma's radiant shields. He met Akali's shadow, Kennen's lightning, Yasuo's wind, all crashing against him like tides against a cliff that had already died. They stopped him. Not forever, but long enough for refugees to flee. Long enough for Swain to realize the weapon still fired in every direction. Once more chains. Once more darkness. Yet the world had seen the crown flashing beneath foreign suns. The legend could no longer be buried. The city of Havardis, the first witness to Sion's living glory, had dared to secede. Swain's solution was poetic. He shipped the undead founder back to his first conquest. Iron bars, wagons of reinforced steel, and 1,000 silent prisoners pulled the cage. When the gate burst, Sion didn't walk. He landed, kneeling only to rip towers from their foundations. Defenders froze at the sight of their own mythology murdering them. He laughed the same earthquake laugh, louder now because the crown clattered with every guffaw. By dawn, Havardis was rubble. Surrounding provinces knelt without a single sword raised. Swain nodded from faraway Noxus, already planning the next leash. Today the statue stands cracked. The tomb is never truly closed. On quiet nights, citizens swear they hear metal scraping stone, as if something enormous turns in its sleep. Sion remembers almost nothing. Only red, only forward, only the weight of gold against bone. But sometimes, when the battlefield is empty and the crows grow brave, he touches the circlet fused to his face and feels pressure. Not pain. Pain is for the living. It's a pressure like memory trying to breathe through a mouth that no longer exists. He doesn't know the name Jarvan anymore, yet the syllables echo whenever Dalmatian banners appear on the horizon. He doesn't recognize Swain, LeBlanc, or Irelia, yet their scents tighten the runes carved inside his ribs. He knows only one truth, hammered into what remains of a soul. The world trembled when he died. It trembles still, now that he refuses to. And somewhere, in a distant palace, a young prince named Jarvan IV traces the missing edge of his grandfather S crown, and wonders why the night wind sounds like laughter. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into one of Runeterra's most terrifying legends. If you enjoyed this story, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more lore. Let me know in the comments which champion you want to see covered next. Until then, stay legendary.